Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to unravel the ancient origins, profound philosophies, and monumental legacies of Jainism. We're going to explore how a belief system that sees life in literally every single speck of dust shaped centuries of human history, surviving brutal famines, massive philosophical schisms, and the test of time to leave a breathtaking mark on the world. To make sense of over 1,500 years of history, we'll follow this quick roadmap. 1. Foundations of the faith. 2. Souls, karma, and Sallekhana. 3. The famine and the schism. 4. Saving the lost scriptures. And finally, 5. Sacred sites and monuments.
All right, Section 1, Foundations of the Faith, the ancient Tirthankaras.
The ancient roots of Jainism really take hold with Parshvanatha. He is recognized as the 23rd Tirthankara, and he was born way back in 850 BC. Then, if we jump forward a few centuries, we hit the birth of Mahavira in 599 BC. These two figures, they are absolutely foundational to the spiritual architecture of the entire faith. Now, what's genuinely fascinating about these two leaders is their strikingly similar yet contrasting royal backgrounds. Parshvanatha was a literal prince in Varanasi, born to King Aswasana of the Ikshwaku dynasty. But get this, at age 30, he just walked away from all of that wealth. He renounced the world, meditated for 84 days straight, until he attained ultimate knowledge and eventually reached parinirvana at Sammidsakar. Then you have Mahavira, originally named Vardhamana, also born into deep nobility in Bihar and tied to some seriously powerful rulers. But what really humanizes Mahavira's journey is that his very first disciple was actually his own son-in-law, Jamali. Jamali ended up taking his vows right alongside 500 warriors. So both of these men essentially traded immense, untouchable worldly privilege for ascetic spiritual truth. Moving on to Section 2, Souls, Karma, and Sallekhana, the micro to the macro. The universe is not for humanity alone, it is a field of evolution for all living beings. That quote from Jain Acharya Gurudev Chitarbhanu perfectly nails the Jain worldview. It's this vast, incredibly interconnected web. In their tradition, a soul isn't just something humans or animals have. No, it resides in literally every single particle of the world. We're talking the earth, water, fire, air, and even the plants. Because of that, karma in Jainism isn't just some abstract idea or a cosmic balancing scale. It is conceived as actual, extremely subtle physical matter. Imagine it like a microscopic dust. Every single thought, word, or deed you have produces an effect, causing this subtle matter to actually infiltrate and obscure the natural, pure qualities of your soul. This accumulated karma acts as a literal chain of cause and effect, and it directly dictates transmigration. It decides, for sure, whether a soul reincarnates into heaven, hell, or as a human or an animal. Now, because they have this unbelievably deep reverence for the soul and this intense drive to avoid accumulating any bad karma, Jain ascetics follow a remarkably strict ethical code. And this leads to a prescribed final vow called Samadhi Maran, or Sallekhana. Basically, when a normal life is absolutely no longer possible, maybe due to extreme old age or an incurable disease, ascetics and sometimes even lay followers will take this vow. They consciously and very gradually reduce their intake of food and liquid until the very end. Right, Section 3, the famine and the schism, a divide in the faith. Fast forward about 150 years after Lord Mahavira's departure. The capital city of Pataliputra, which was this thriving hub of knowledge under the Nanda dynasty, gets hit by a catastrophic 12-year famine. You can imagine, during this kind of horrific scarcity, it became virtually impossible for monks to observe their incredibly strict codes of conduct. So the head of the religious order, Bhadrabahu Swami, had to make a desperate, decisive call. He led a massive migration south just to preserve their vows, leaving a group of followers behind in the north. And that catastrophic event, it permanently fractured the faith, creating a physical and ideological divide between two main sects. The followers who migrated south with Bhadrabahu Swami proudly stuck to the absolute strictest ancient codes. They remained mostly unclad and became known as the Digambars, which literally translates to skyclad. Meanwhile, the followers who stayed up north under Venerable Sulabhadra started covering their bodies with a plain white cloth, and they became known as the Shwetambars. To this day, that split is a fundamental feature of Jainism. That brings us to Section 4, Saving the Lost Scriptures, Councils, and Compilations. In the wake of that massive schism, a frantic scramble began to save the ancient knowledge. I mean, think about trying to rewrite an entire library strictly from memory.
The ancient Jain scriptures, preached by all the Tirthankaras, were known as the 14 Purvas. But by the time of the last Nanda ruler, literally only 2 people alive fully knew them, Sambhutvajai and Bhadrabahu. It took centuries of councils and compilations to piece it all back together. The first council happened around 310 BC in Patliputra to edit the 12 Angas for the Shwetambara canon. But because the Digambars boycotted a literary compilation council in the 4th century BC, the texts just diverged even further. It wasn't until the 6th century AD at Vallabhi that the final Jain books were compiled in the Ardhamagathyanj. And just for some context on how rich this era was for religious literature, this was right around the same time Buddhists were compiling works like the Therigatha, which famously recounted the spiritual struggles of early nuns.
To give you a sense of just how intellectually vibrant and, honestly, fiercely competitive this ancient era was, let's consider the diverse array of ancient teachers, or acharyas, and their specific doctrines. You've got Lakalisa teaching Pashupat, Nagarjuna preaching Sunyavada, Bhadrabahu cementing Jainism, and Gosala founding the Ajivaka creed. And what's wild here is that Gosala was actually originally an early disciple of Mahavira himself, but a massive difference of opinion caused him to just break away and start his own independent sect. So why exactly did Gosala break away? It really comes down to his doctrine of Niyatiwad. This is the core belief of the Ajivaka sect that every single matter in the world is strictly controlled and operated by destiny or fate. No exceptions. Obviously, this heavily contrasts with the Jain emphasis on karma, where your personal actions, thoughts, and deeds directly weave the fabric of your own spiritual future. It was basically the ultimate ancient debate of free will versus absolute fate. Okay, finally, Section 5, Sacred Sites and Monuments, a Legacy in Stone. Ancient India was essentially this massive canvas of diverse religious patronage. Kings and entire dynasties were just backing different spiritual movements left and right. For instance, Kalinga King Karvala heavily patronized Jain monks. Meanwhile, Emperor Ashoka and his grandson carved out the magnificent Barabar caves specifically for the Ajivaka followers. Cities like Kaushambi evolved into these huge shared pilgrimage sites for both Jains and Buddhists. And across the region, from the Ikshvakus down south supporting Vedic and Buddhist traditions, to Bengal becoming a massive Buddhist nucleus under the Pala dynasty, the whole landscape was totally transformed by devotion. You see this lasting legacy today in places like Tawang, Khajuraho, and Hoysaleswar. But if we're talking about Jainism's absolute most breathtaking physical legacy, we have to talk about the Gomateshwar statue at Shravanabelagola. Built way back in 91 AD by a minister named Chamundaraya, this awe-inspiring monument is dedicated to Lord Bahubali, who is revered as the son of the very first Tirthankara. 18 meters. That staggering number is the sheer height of this monolithic statue. Try to imagine a structure roughly 6 stories tall, carved over 1,000 years ago out of a single piece of stone, standing completely unclad. It is this incredibly serene testament to the Jain ideal of absolute spiritual detachment, and it just shows the monumental scale of their devotion. And honestly, the coolest part is that devotion to this site isn't just some ancient history. It is incredibly vibrant today. It culminates in the Mahamastakabhisheka. This is a massive, spectacular religious ceremony held to honor that giant statue. But here is the catch. This awe-inspiring event only happens once every 12 years. That makes it a profoundly rare and unifying moment for followers when it does happen. So as we wrap up this explainer, tracing a path all the way from microscopic karmic matter to an 18-meter-tall monolith, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If Jainism teaches us that absolutely every particle in the universe, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, holds a living soul, how does that change the way we interact with the world around us today? It's a beautifully complex worldview that challenges us to rethink our place in the vast web of life. I hope this look through the history and philosophy of Jainism has sparked your curiosity to learn even more.